Woj seems to think that the New York Knicks are about to make a blockbuster trade within around the next year. Obviously, this is huge news, so we're going to break it down on Knicks Digest. Welcome back, guys. My name is Chris, as you may know, and we're going to jump right into this. But first things first, 22% of our viewers are subscribed. Try to get that number up for us. It's the holiday season. It's the time of giving. But let's jump right into this video and talk about some New York Knicks basketball, baby. Let's do it. So, first things first, and really the main thing that we are talking about, Adrian Wojnarowski, I think I botched it, says Knicks making a blockbuster move is something that's basically imminent. Now, those are not his exact words. These are words that I am sort of making up at this point, but Woj did say that the New York Knicks are ready to make a star trade. They have the assets to do so, and this could happen potentially as soon as the trade deadline, maybe the draft, maybe free agency next year. Things are happening, and it's just so important right now for the New York Knicks to really figure out the direction that they're going in, because they're really good. They're obviously way too good to tank. They're way past that point. But they're also they're not good enough to contend right now. To just put it bluntly, they're not good enough to contend. They're a second-round team. That's what Woj said, and we're going to jump right into that in 1 second. But between that and just the fact that the Knicks are a young team, they need to find some sort of direction, whether it's going to be moving young players to contend now, or maybe just sort of doing the slow build that they're doing, which is my vote, but, we're not talking about that right now. So let's just look at what exactly had to be said. Sorry, that's the wrong thing that we will get into in a bit. Woj on the New York Knicks. At best, they're probably a second-round playoff team, but in position, they have 8 total firsts, 10 second-rounders, and all of their pick swaps to go out and do a big deal. Whether that's at the trade deadline, draft, or free agency, the next big players who ask out or become available, I think the Knicks are in great position asset-wise to go get a true number one player. Jalen Brunson's been outstanding, but there's another level of star that they need to get, and they do have assets to go do it. Again, I'm just going to show this now because I keep clicking it accidentally. This is some of the New York Knicks draft picks. It's a little hard to read, so I'll just kind of break this down as much as I can for you guys without just going into like a year's long of explaining this. The Knicks have the Dallas pick that has sort of conveyed from last year's debacle because they were upset about Brunson, so they purposely tanked. That comes over from the Porzingis trade a couple of years back. The Knicks have the Pistons trade. That was part of that whole Ousmane Dieng, Jalen Duren thing that the Knicks were doing in the draft in 2021 when they kept just making trades constantly to get a bunch of those picks. That's where the Wizards pick comes from also. They have some second rounders that I couldn't even tell you where they're from, honestly. They have the Bucks pick. That was, again, just a bunch of trade stuff that they were working on the draft. They have that Nets second-round pick. I have no idea where that one comes from. Or the Detroit second-round pick. They have their own 2026 pick. Let's just finish this up very quickly. The Knicks have their own 2027 picks, their own 2028 picks. They have an Indiana or Phoenix protected something, or non-protected 2028 second-rounder. Again, don't know. They have their own picks through 2030, and they have a few second-rounders. As Woj said, it's 8 firsts and 10 seconds, as you can see right here. But really, guys, here's the big thing here. We know that it's not going to be some name that we have not heard before, and that leaves us to one thing. There's not gonna be some surprise, essentially, is what I'm trying to say. So here are the 3 names to really watch out for. Those 3 names are going to be Karl-Anthony Towns, Donovan Mitchell, and Joel Embiid. Now, that order that I just said it in is how I want these players from least to most. I have no interest in Karl-Anthony Towns. I've broke this down before. I don't think he fits with Mitchell Robinson if the Knicks were to trade Julius Randle for him. Or if the Knicks were to do some 3-team trade where they're trading Robinson to make Cat their center. I think that's a nightmare, because then the Knicks, who are a defensive team, now don't have one of the best defensive centers in the NBA. Instead, they have one of the worst defensive centers in the NBA, who also has forgotten how to shoot. So I do not think that Karl-Anthony Towns is the move at all. I don't care about his connections with Leon Rose and the New York Knicks and the state of New York. I don't care. I don't think it's the right move for the Knicks at all. It doesn't work fit-wise. He's going to be making $60 million per year, which is disgusting for Karl-Anthony Towns. I'm not going to say Mitch is better than Karl-Anthony Towns. That would be very much home team bias. But what I will say is that I would rather have Mitchell Robinson on the Knicks for the contract that he has than Karl-Anthony Towns on the New York Knicks for the contract that Towns currently has. And I don't think that's a hot take. The Knicks have to avoid that second apron, and that's going to be difficult to do with how much Cat's getting paid. with the Brunson extension that's coming, with Randall's potential extension, with RJ's money, with the extension that Quickly's going to want if the Knicks keep him around. Grimes is going to be getting extended soon. DiVincenzo's not making a small amount of money. Josh Hart's not making a small amount of money. No, man. No. I like defense. If you want Karl-Anthony Towns, comment down below and let me know why without just saying, it's Cat. Look at how good he's been in the past. Give me a reason on why he fits with this New York Knicks team. Yes, you. You, Mr. Karl-Anthony, or Mrs. Karl-Anthony Towns fan. 97% of our viewers are men. I'm sorry. Tell me why you want him. But also, then we move on to Donovan Mitchell. Donovan's averaging 30 points per game this year. He's having a tremendous regular season, as always. Not throwing shade towards his playoff performances. He's had some of the best playoff performances in history. He has the third most points in a playoff game ever. Scored 71 points in the regular season before last season. And then, you know, the Knicks beat him in the playoffs. Brunson's beat him in the playoffs the last 2 years. I don't know how Donovan fits with Jalen Brunson. I'm going to say something that might turn Knicks fans on me for a little bit. But I obviously was wrong. I didn't want Jalen Brunson. I wanted Emmanuel Quickly to become the Knicks starting point guard. That's what I wanted. I did not want Jalen Brunson. I did not see it. And then I was just so blatantly incorrect that it truly was probably my worst take as a Knicks fan I've ever had. I also wasn't vehemently against it. I was just like, I don't see a point. Now, since they signed him, I really don't want Donovan Mitchell as much because I don't like the fit of them together. I want the ball in Brunson's hands. I don't want it in Donovan's hands, taking the ball away from Brunson and making more isolation basketball that I think the Knicks need to move away from. They shouldn't move towards isolation basketball, and a Brunson-Donovan Mitchell backcourt is exactly that. You're also giving a lot to where you're going to be a slightly better version of like that Portland Trailblazers rotation where you got two offense first shorter guards as your absolute backcourt who you're really living and dying off of. And I don't want that. I like Grimes in the backcourt with Jalen Brunson. And obviously you need to make improvements to win championships, but I don't think it should be at that position. I just don't think that makes sense for the Knicks to go out there and get Donovan Mitchell if it's in a trade. If it is in free agency a few years down the line, I feel completely differently. If you have the opportunity to sign Donovan Mitchell and not lose anything in the process, then you go do it, no questions asked. You figure it out later. You absolutely do that. And then there's Joel Embiid, who's just having a monster season. I have his stats somewhere up here. These are his stats right here. If you see right there, 32 points per game, 11 rebounds, 6 assists, 53% from the field, 40% from three, 84% from the free throw line, and then a PER of 32. The man is once again having an MVP level season. And I think that if the Knicks were to trade for someone, Joel Embiid is the guy. I am going to throw a quick other name out there in a minute, but really quickly with Joel Embiid before we wrap this whole thing up. We've talked about all these connections to the Knicks. We don't have to re-go over it. I just want to show you guys a very quick trade that we're going to go into a lot more on this channel, so I'm not going to really do a ton about this. But look right here. Knicks received Joel Embiid and Marcus Morris from the 76ers in exchange for Barrett, Robinson, Quickly, Julius, a 2024 Dallas pick, the 2025 Milwaukee pick, the 2025 Knicks pick, 2027 and 2029, 25, 27, 29, all unprotected. All I'm going to say, as things just changed, I don't know why, we're going to pretend like that didn't happen, is that essentially the New York Knicks, they just... I'm really thrown off by this background right now, guys. I don't know what happened. Technical difficulties. But really, that's the realistic trade for Joel Embiid. And that's all I'm going to go into on that. One more name to quickly throw out there before I go and fix whatever's going on with this whole thing, with my background that's disappeared, is that there's still Zion, and I think that's your best bet. I think you go for Zion. That's what I personally think about. I know the injury history. I know all of that, but what Paul Pierce said is true. It is hard to trade within your conference. Now the Knicks have to try to trade within their division. I know that Daryl Morey once did that before to get James Harden from the Brooklyn Nets, but that was very specifically to get James Harden. That had nothing to do with giving Ben Simmons to the Nets. That had everything to do with getting James Harden on the team, and Harden happened to play for the Brooklyn Nets at the time. Morey's not going to want to trade Embiid to a team that he's going to have to see 4 times a season. That's how it goes. So I think you go for Zion. I almost called him Zion Mitchell. Guys, my brain is moving too fast, and this background is throwing me off right now. So we're going to wrap this one up. Thank you so much for tuning in. Make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Comment down below who you think the Knicks should target. Of all potential trade targets, and I'm talking Mitchell, Cat, Embiid, even Zach LaVine. That one's not going to happen. But still, if that's your guy, if you think there's a guy, or obviously Zion, who's my pick, if you think there is someone the New York Knicks can get and should go for, comment down below and let me know. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel. And remember, you see a little patch on my jersey, the RJ jersey behind me, the Bernard King, John Starks over there. You know where I'm going. Have a good day. And remember, go New York Knicks.